Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Welcome in to another edition of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. It is Monday, April 12th. Appreciate everyone tuning in today. Hopefully you guys had a fantastic weekend out there. I know I sure did, watching the Masters from Thursday through Sunday. Recording this here late Sunday afternoon. The Masters Sunday going at it. Matsuyama currently has a lead on the field by about at least 3 strokes here. Zalatoris currently behind him in second place as a out-of-nowhere runner-up potentially for the Masters, but they'll be making the turn coming down the back 9 here shortly. It was just a fun weekend to watch some golf as the weather continues to turn towards springtime here, and we continue to get warmer and warmer wherever you're located. Maybe it's already hot where you're at, but here in the Northeast, we're starting to finally get that spring and summertime weather. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. We got a fantastic show lined up for you here today. We got a lot to talk about. A lot has happened in Major League Baseball over the past couple of days since I talked to you guys last, and I want to give everybody an update on some injuries, some decisions that have been made, some historical moments that have taken place, and then, of course, giving you guys an update on the standings and where we sit here more than a week and a half, almost 2 weeks into the 2021 regular season. But at the top of the show, we, of course, have to talk about Major League Baseball's decision to relocate the All-Star Game from Atlanta, Georgia, to Denver, Colorado. And this was based around the new voting laws that were put in place by Georgia. And, I mean, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm smart enough to have any idea what the right answer is here, right or wrong. You know, you read all these articles online by these journalists, which no longer just give you the facts. They basically just give you their opinion. And that's pretty much what I'm going to do here today. So, I mean, honestly, I'll probably, or some of you guys listening are going to disagree with me. Some of you guys are going to agree with me, and that's fine either way. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of my political views, is that I'm a fan of individualism, right? I've voted in 4 elections now, being 32 years old, and I've already voted Democrat. I've already voted Republican. So I really don't identify with one party over the other. I tend to identify and vote for individuals who I think are best in that particular moment or that particular state of the country. So, you know, really, again, if I upset you, I apologize. But, you know, again, if you disagree, agree, whatever, that's up to you. I'm not trying to convince anybody out there to feel one way or the other. I'm just going to let you guys know what's going on and just some takeaways personally that I had that continue to just kind of confuse me and my overall outlook on the situation. But first, the new voting laws in Georgia. Honestly, I don't know exactly what they are. I know it has to do with providing a state license ID number, ID card, date of birth, last 4 of social, or any other form of ID while voting. There's a cutoff date around the primary and general elections. Ballots must be in black and white ink on a special amount of paper. There's, you know, conditions. They could reject absentee ballots if, you know, somebody violates this. And again, Democrats seem to be extremely upset that this has to, really affect minority voters in the state of Georgia, and it is voter suppression. And then Republicans have come out saying that these restrictions around voting are not strong enough. And again, just all over the spectrum when it comes to which side of this you stand on. But then ultimately, where, you know, my outlook or my relationship with this, being a host for you guys here on a baseball podcast, comes when MLB comes in and decides that they are going to move the All-Star Game out of Atlanta. And first of all, this All-Star game was supposed to honor the late, great Hank Aaron for his outstanding career, his Hall of Fame career, and they were going to do it in Atlanta, where he played for years and years. And now they can no longer honor Hank Aaron, which upsets me greatly. I mean, this guy's one of the greatest of all time to do it, top 3, top 5. Now you're going to honor Hank Aaron in Colorado? Is that what we're doing? Because that doesn't really make sense to me on why that would take place, as well as moving the game from Atlanta to Colorado again. So in order to continue to fight racism and voter inequality, which is what Commissioner Rob Manfred has come out and said, so he's going to help fight racism by moving a baseball game and more importantly, a sporting spectacle or event from a city that has about 80% minority population, minority-owned small businesses, minority-owned businesses in general that would have benefited from people coming in from all over the country, spending money in these businesses, going out to eat with these restaurants, drinking in these restaurants, an economic boom that these restaurants absolutely need anywhere in America just due to the coronavirus and everything that has taken place. He's going to now move that money and that opportunity from the city of Atlanta to the city of Denver, Colorado, which has a 10% minority population. So fighting racism, which, again, I'm all for. I mean, that's the worst thing ever, right? So that's not what I'm saying. But just fighting racism verbally by saying, hey, I disagree with this, we're going to move the game. But then his actions, I guess inconsequently, if that's the way you want to put it, are taking money out of minority-owned businesses' pockets, minority-owned restaurants, and they're going to now put them into white-owned businesses and white-owned small businesses in the state of Denver, Colorado. So you're now going to fight racism by taking money away from minorities and African Americans and giving it to white-owned businesses in Colorado, which, again, I don't understand that. And it's come out that, I forget the woman's name, but a social activist, a voting activist in the state of Georgia, she basically talked to Major League Baseball and implored them to keep the game in Atlanta for these reasons. Like, just come out and say you're against all of this, but leave the game there to honor, 1, Hank Aaron, and 2, provide economic opportunity for these minority-owned businesses if that's what you're trying to do here. So that side of things I just don't get. But overall, in the bigger picture and as a whole, I'm the type of person who, we've spoke about this in the past when it comes to roster decision and ultimately which way to go, but I want my sports and politics, I guess, independent of each other. Or myself personally inside, I'm able to see them independently of each other, right? Sports for me is strictly entertainment. And, you know, it's something I don't understand when either a sports person or a celebrity or an actor or whoever in entertainment comes out and speaks on an issue one way or the other, why there's a following from anyone who now decides to feel the same way, whether it's a white person, a black person, a male, a female, whoever it is, if they're an actress, if they're a movie guy, if they're a sports star, who cares what LeBron James has to say on a particular event? Who cares if Carson Wentz has something to say on a particular event, or Chrissy Teigen, or Khloe Kardashian, or Kim Kardashian, or Kanye West? I mean, these people, their outlook, their points of view, they don't have any reflection on my life or my quality of life. Now, again, I'm not saying these individuals should not speak out on these particular events or actions and utilize their platform and speak up when people listen. I am just on the other side going, that's good for you. That's, again, individualism. Fantastic. Feel the way you feel. You have the opportunity in front of a microphone. Say what you want to say. But I'm not going to change my outlook on anything based on what any of you say, whether it's, an actor in the Marvel universe or Tiger Woods or Tom Brady or LeBron James. I mean, speak your will, say your piece, but I'm not going to change my outlook based on what you say. And just for people who follow celebrities, whether it's Taylor Swift or anybody, and go, oh, Taylor feels this way or Chrissy Teigen feels this way, now I am going to feel this way. I'm able to just compartmentalize and realize that I'm going to think for myself on particular solutions, whatever the reasoning is. I do my own research on events and how they relate to my life, how they will change my life, and then I make my own decisions based on that information, that intake, my experiences, my past experiences with certain things, and it floors me how people will hear an athlete in this case or anybody say, oh, this is how I feel and this is how you should feel. Nobody should tell you how you should feel on anything. You should come to that conclusion on your own. Be smart enough, be willing to invest the time, be willing to do the research, look on both sides of a particular issue, do some research on the right side, do some research on the left side, or whatever it is internally, and then come to your own conclusions on how you feel yourself. Like, stop relying on others, athletes, actresses, whoever it may be, to come to conclusions on events. And that's just what's happening here in this baseball world. I mean, you have the far right, a lot of conservatives, a lot of Republicans coming out of, oh, boycott fans, and we're not going to go to games anymore. We're not going to watch. And David Wells has come out and said he can't watch baseball anymore, and he's out on the sport. Again, I don't care what David Wells has to say on this particular issue. And that's nothing against David Wells. He's an awesome guy. I've met him in person at Yankee Stadium before I went on the field for batting practice with one of my buddies who's in the league right now. So I've spoken to him. Good dude. But if David Wells came out on the other side and said, this is the best move ever, I'm all for this, this is exactly what I wanted, I wouldn't care that way either. So it's not an outlook or where you stand on a particular issue that is the problem here. It's just the fact that people are writing all of these articles online. If you just Google this, All-Star Game, and David Wells said this, David Wells said that, like, who cares? I mean, you shouldn't care. I don't care. But again, I'm not saying that David Wells shouldn't say these things or share his opinion or communicate how he's feeling. He absolutely should. If somebody's going to ask him, say your piece, say what you feel. I'm just telling you guys as an audience or listening that you don't take that into consideration when making your own decisions. And as I'm talking to you guys now, some of you are probably getting upset out there. How could you feel like that? How could you feel like this? And that's fine. I want you to feel that way. You're entitled to your own opinion. I still respect the heck out of you. And that's what people need to realize. You can have differing opinions and still respect the other side. And try not to convince others, right? Like, I try to help, ask you guys for help to convince others to listen to this podcast every time. I ask you guys, please text it to your friends. Please write a comment. Please share. Please follow. Please subscribe. And if you guys don't do that, what makes you think that you're going to change somebody else's political opinions based on a Facebook quote or a Twitter tweet or whatever it is out there? So it's just fascinating how baseball has just thrusted themselves into this political world to which there is no winning, right? Like, you can't win right now in today's political world. No matter what you do, almost half of the country is going to be upset with your actions. And that's the hard part when you're Rob Manfred and you get into a situation like this one. If he stays in Atlanta, if he doesn't do anything with the All-Star Game, he's going to upset X percentage amount of these types of people. If he moves the game, then he upsets these percentage amount of this type of people. And so it really isn't, it really is a lose-lose situation. And that's basically where I come out and just try to stay out of it, baseball, right? Like, you don't want the publicity positively or negatively. I mean, maybe you do. Maybe getting people talking about the game is actually a good thing and actually what you want, because every time people are talking about the game right now, it seems to be in a negative light. I mean, during the offseason, talking to you guys about the Astros scandal, and then Manfred comes out and calls the trophy a piece of metal, and then just everything is just compounded on each other in a negative fashion for baseball. And this just seems to be another one of those where you read all the articles of, fantastic decision by baseball to move the All-Star Game. And then you scroll down one article, and it's a huge mistake by baseball to switch the All-Star Game. And maybe the publicity is what they want, both good and bad. I don't know. It's just one of those. I saw that, headline pop up a few days ago on SportsCenter, and it was like, well, why are they moving the All-Star Game? And then it comes out hours later, it's due to the new voting laws and voting restrictions. And I'm just like, what do the voting laws in political elections have anything to do with the game of Major League Baseball? That's really just the question I come down to as I wrap up this first segment here is, what do the voting laws have anything to do with Major League Baseball? And thus, again, just, okay, so you agree or disagree, but in order to help fight racism, baseball is taking away an economic boom from a minority-driven city and giving it to a 10% minority-owned city and saying, this is how we're fighting racism. We're going to give all this money, all this economic opportunity, all these benefits. We're going to take it away from minorities, and we're going to give it to white people halfway across the country. It just blows my mind. But I know it's a touchy subject. Again, I'm not acting to be smart enough like I know the right answer. That's just kind of my take on the entire situation. And if you guys listened, stuck around, I appreciate it. If you disagree, you threw your phone, you turned it off, I apologize. But again, I just love to have the conversation with you guys. And let me know in the comments what you think about that entire rant there. So that'll do it for segment number 1 of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. As always, we're going to step aside here for a word from one of our sponsors, one of our sister shows. But when we come back, we're going to talk about some injuries and some updates across Major League Baseball. Some historical things have taken place. It's pretty cool. So stick around, everyone. We'll be right back after this.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys haven't checked us out on social media yet, please do yourself a favor. Head to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Check out both GSMC Baseball. That page will keep you guys up to date with the latest going on across Major League Baseball. On Twitter, we'll keep you guys updated on all the big news, stories, everything that's developing out there. Facebook will be posting all the articles being written, giving some takes, as well as LinkedIn. But also there is the GSMC Podcast Network pages out there for everybody. Of course, here at GSMC, the Podcast Network has upwards of like 20 different shows, 25 different shows, all with fantastic hosts, fantastic quality content. So if you guys type those into the search bars there on the social media pages as well, you'll be taken to some quality content across the board to keep you guys up to date on everything you need to know regarding any topic you guys think is relevant out there. So appreciate that. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram certainly helps us continue to grow and expand the pod as we are starting to get to, the middle of baseball season, right? A couple of weeks in, it's coming at you day in, day out. So you guys are going to get quality content here. I know I said the middle, but you know what I mean. We're coming at you day to day now. So things are certainly picking up here from the off season. But a couple of historical outings, a couple of feats that were met this past week since I talked to you guys last that were pretty crazy to think about. I mean, first, we're not going to talk about the big one. We'll save that one for just a second. But Tim Locastro. Have you guys ever heard of Tim Locastro? I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know who the guy was up until Saturday night when he made history in Major League Baseball. So Tim Locastro, currently of the Arizona Diamondbacks, 28 years old. His first 2 years, he was with the LA Dodgers. But on Saturday, he stole second base in the 6th inning of the game against the Reds. And this was Locastro's 28th straight stolen base to start his career without getting caught, without being picked off, without being thrown out. So 28 straight to start his career, which broke the record previously held by Hall of Famer Tim Raines, who stole 27 in a row to start his career from 1979 to 1981. Now, this record of stolen bases has been kept since 1951. So if it happened pre-World War II, we don't know about it in the record book. Maybe a couple of you guys listening out there remember somebody coming up being that fast. But the Baseball Hall of Fame requested Locastro's cleats, which he had specially painted for the occasion, and they're going to end up in Cooperstown for the rest of time, as he now has the record for 28 straight to start out a career without being caught. Now, these 28 steals have come over the course of 5 seasons. And this is why I don't think a lot of you guys have heard about Locastro out there, because it's not like, he came storming onto the scene last year, stole 30 in a row without getting caught. He literally, in 2017, he played in 1 game. He had 1 plate appearance, and he had a stolen base, or he played in 3 games with 1 plate appearance. So it's basically a pitch runner for the Dodgers in 2017. And he had 1 stolen base without getting caught when he made his big league debut. Then in 2018, played in 18 games, only had 11 at-bats, and had 4 stolen bases for the Dodgers in 2018. 2019, he was then shipped to Arizona, where he played in 91 games, so a bit more time there, 212 at-bats, but had a total of 17 stolen bases. So that was his high for a season. Last year in the shortened season for Arizona, 33 out of the 60 games, 82 plate appearances with 4 stolen bases. And here in 2021, over the course of 9 games, he's played in all 9 games, he now has 2 stolen bases. So he has 28 steals without getting caught to start his career, and it'll be fascinating to see ultimately how high he can take that number. And the video game style is what you want to call him, because when it comes to MLB The Show, he has a 99 overall speed, and it's certainly very impressive. But shout out to Locastro, setting a Major League Baseball record that I didn't even know had a possibility of falling here to start off the regular season. So, round of applause for Locastro. But now the big one that took place over the past couple of days was obviously we had ourselves the first no-hitter of the 2021 season. And this was thrown by San Diego Padres pitcher Joe Musgrove. And the reason that this one was historic, well, there were a couple of different reasons, but the first one is that this was the first no-hitter in the history of the San Diego Padres. The Padres have gone 53 seasons without a no-hitter until Joe Musgrove was able to do it the other night there in the state of Texas, in Arlington, against the Texas Rangers. But doing a little bit of a deep dive into his outing there, he struck out 10 batters over the course of the 9 innings, 112 pitches, and only allowed 1 base runner, which was Joey Gallo, who he hit by a pitch in the 4th inning of that game. But looking at Baseball Savant, kind of diving into Musgrove's outing, he threw slider the most often. He threw 34 sliders, 28 cutters, 28 curveballs, and only 8 four-seam fastballs out of his 212 pitches. So 34 sliders. He had 8 swing and misses against the slider, 3 each against the cutter and curveball, for a total of 15 out of his run 12. His average velocity was 83 on the slider. It was just about 90 on the cutter, 94 on the four-seam, and 82 on the curveball. So that helps him when he's tunneling his pitches. And when I say, tunneling his pitches, it means that everything comes out of the same plane, out of the hand, and then there's multiple speeds, right? So your four-seam's 94, the cutter's 89, but then with the slider and the curveball at 83 and 82, the hitter has to figure out ultimately, okay, I'm reading breaking ball here, but which breaking ball am I getting when it comes to this particular situation? What am I getting when it comes to ultimately what he is throwing here and moving offensively? And a lot of it here, as I'm looking at Savant, he mixed in his two-seam, or his changeup, was away to lefties and into righties. The slider, basically away to right-handed hitters, as well as the breaking ball. And then the four-seam fastball was at the top of the zone. So he was fastball up, change up, low to the one side, and then slider curveball to the other side of the plate, being able to keep the Texas Rangers hitters guessing on ultimately what was coming. So it's just it's fascinating to see Musgrove really improve and really figure things out as he continues to develop from his time with the Pirates now to with the Padres. But the reason this one is historical as well, again, first one in Padres history, but they also had held opponents hitless through 8 innings 23 times before. That's an amazing statistic. 23 times somebody for the Padres has had a no-hitter going into the 9th inning and lost that no-hitter. And man, I guess the 24th time's the charm. You would think after the 5th or 6th time that something would happen and they'd be able to figure it out. But 24 times up until they went hitless through 8 and ultimately got it done through 9 innings. Just a wow stat when you read it. But Musgrove has now gone 31 straight shutout innings dating back to last year with the Pirates. He's held opponents scoreless over his last 4 starts, and that's just, man, the guy is locked in when it comes to being on the mound right now. So he broke the Padres streak of 8,205 regular season games without a no-hitter. 8,205 games in to the Padres' organizational history before they get a no-hitter. Just outstanding. And then there was another part of history that took place during the same no-hitter, and that has to do with catcher Victor Caratini. So Victor Caratini caught this no-hitter by Joe Musgrove with the Padres, but Caratini also caught the last no-hitter last year thrown by Alec Mills of the Chicago Cubs. So Caratini has now caught the last 2 no-hitters for 2 separate teams, and this is the first time that has been done in the history of Major League Baseball. I mean, Caratini is a no catcher. It's just kind of fascinating. I mean, this was Musgrove's first no-hitter at any level in regards to competitive baseball. So Caratini just knows all the right buttons to push, what to get him to throw. And again, he caught one on September 13th of last year that Alex Mills had thrown. So, man, the first time in the history of baseball somebody's caught a no-hitter on 2 different teams over the course of back-to-back no-hitters. I mean, who would have thought, right? Caratini goes, and then Musgrove, it's the same guy. Just a fascinating statistic, but I'm happy for Caratini. I'm happy for Musgrove. It was fun to watch. There have been a couple of other no-hit bids that have been flirted with already here in 2021. I mean, who was it? Burns and Barrios for the Brewers and Twins. Both had no-nos through 6 innings earlier this year. Now this one goes the full 9. I think we had another one broken up in the 8th inning or, 7th, 8th inning earlier this year. And it's going to be fascinating to see how many we get throughout the course of the season. If that number goes up with the, quote, deadened baseballs that they now have out there, if that helps the pitchers figure things out, or just the continued evolution of, sabermetrics and spin rates and all of that stuff, leads to more no-hitters and the uptick in strikeouts, home runs, just the whole evolution of the game may lead to more no-hitters here in the 2021 season. But the last thing I wanted to talk about here in segment number 2 was Trevor Bauer, who may or may not be getting singled out by Major League Baseball because we've read some reports here. There was a report that came out a few days ago, I believe by The Athletic, that said multiple baseballs from Trevor Bauer's outing, his last outing against the Oakland Athletics, were collected for inspection after they were found to contain visible markings and felt sticky, which, again, kind of interesting because Bauer then came out on Twitter and said he criticized Major League Baseball for leaking information about a, quote, supposedly confidential process. Now, manager Dave Roberts of the Dodgers, Bauer's manager, he came out and said, quote, my understanding is that umpires collect baseballs from all the pitchers and all balls that were in play to collect samples. That's kind of what I get from it. I just hope that our player is not singled out. That's the one thing I want to guard against because, of course, Trevor Bauer is just an electric personality. He's a big personality in the game of baseball. Most recently he came out because I think he was unbuttoning his jersey a little bit or had a belt in spring training and had a solid tweet where it was like, baseball needs players to come out and promote themselves and promote the game to spread the game and spread its popularity. And then Trevor Bauer essentially does that with his own branded undershirt, own branded belt, and then he got warned that he was going to get fined for breaking the uniform policy in Major League Baseball. So pretty much he put a tweet saying, MLB, you guys need to promote yourself more. Baseball player promotes himself. MLB, we're going to fine you for promoting yourself, and just being so counterintuitive. He's talked against what's happened with the Houston Astros and a lot of detail and a lot of volume against Rob Manfred and how he feels about that situation. So, again, they could be singling him out here because he's been fantastic last year. He's now good again this year, and ultimately trying to figure it out. But from Major League Baseball side of things, you know, they've spent almost over a year now trying to get a better handle on pitchers using quote-unquote foreign substances to maximize spin rates and generate more swings and misses. And this was even sent in a memo earlier this year that they were going to have 3 different new policing methods to try to figure out and try to avoid this. So the 3 methods, it includes having 2 employees, a game day compliance monitor, as well as an electronics compliance officer stationed at every ballpark. That basically said they're going to review StatCast data to pinpoint alarming increases in spin rates that would instruct the on-field personnel, including umpires, to submit baseballs to send back to the commissioner's office for further inspection and documentation. They will prioritize baseball that contain potential evidence of a foreign substance, but will also randomly select balls to ensure full coverage. So these balls get sent into a laboratory for further inspection, trying to figure out what's on it. And at that point, who knows ultimately what's going to take place. But the union has come out and basically said if anything comes down against Trevor Bauer that is against the current agreement, they were going to fight it and push back. And again, just another negative kind of outlook for baseball here as things have now become public, when ultimately this really should have been a behind-the-scenes story. But I find it fascinating that it just happened to be Trevor Bauer, and it just happened to leak out after he's continued to dominate that they're checking out some baseballs from his most recent start as he continues to shove and be, you know, really a personality for the game here. But that'll do it for segment number 2 of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. As always, we'll step aside here once again for a word from one of our sponsors and one of our sister shows. But when we come back, we're going to talk about injuries. There's been a lot here, even in the last 24 hours or so, that have come out. So I'm going to try to keep you guys updated on the latest here so you know what's going on across Major League Baseball. So stick around, everyone. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. We'll be right back after this.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Hideki Matsuyama now has a 5-stroke lead through the first 9 holes here in the Masters on Sunday. Hopefully you guys are watching it. I'm enjoying it. Zalatoris -8, Matsuyama -13. As they head to the back 9. Nobody else within -5 or -6. So Matsuyama looking to become the first Japanese-born player ever to win the Masters in what would be another historical Sunday. So we had a lot of history made in baseball. Now golf's looking to match that feat here on Sunday at the Masters. And man, it's just fun to watch. Beautiful course, beautiful weather. Always fun to watch the Masters. But before we dive into our third segment here, I am going to take a moment to ask you guys, please rate and review the podcast. Do me a favor, wherever you're listening to this, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, Pandora, whatever else we're on out there. I know it changes and there's more and more becoming available every day. So if you guys go there and you guys hit that like button at the bottom of the screen, that goes a long way for helping us continue to grow and continue to spread the word here at GSMC Baseball. But, man, there are just a ton of injuries piling up across Major League Baseball. If you go online and you go to CBS Sports, they have an injury report that you can either do by team or by date. And I myself, I'm pulling up the day here, and there are just a ton of different names on here that are fascinating because it also lists guys who are day-to-day, guys who are headed to the injured list, and pretty much somebody on every team has been affected here less than 2 weeks into the regular season. But one of the big ones that just recently came out here is that J.D. Martinez is going on the COVID-19 list for the Boston Red Sox. Now, again, this doesn't mean that he has tested positive for the virus. He could have come into close proximity with somebody who tested positive with the virus. And again, they can't disclose that information, HIPAA laws, all of that type of stuff. So we don't know exactly what's taking place there, but it's going to be a heck of a loss for the Red Sox early on in the year here. I mean, the guy is hitting .433 in his first 7 games. He's got 7 doubles, 2 home runs. He's got 9 extra base hits and 12 RBIs already this season in 7 games. 12 RBIs, 9 extra base hits in only 7 games. So a huge blow for Red Sox fans. They're waiting on a test result. He needs to get tested again. Could be a rapid test, could be PCR. So they're going to wait back at this point. It's just a wait-and-see approach for the Red Sox and J.D. Martinez on ultimately how long he'll need to be out, whether it's a positive, false positive. They're not letting us know here until the next couple of days when we should have more information. But again, jumping down team by team, day by day here, it's going to feel like I'm bouncing around, but I just want to get you guys up to date. I mean, the Cubs, they have 3 injuries posted here on Sunday. Jonathan Holder, Austin Romine, and Roman Wick are 3 guys all expected to be out at least the next couple of days, probably miss a series, couple of relief pitchers, a catcher in there dealing with some issues. Adam Engel for the White Sox, he's got a hamstring issue. Looks like he's going to be out for the next couple of days. In Cincinnati, you have Michael Lorenzen, who's dealing with some shoulder issues. Looks like he's expected to be out until at least May 1st. So that's a 3 to 4 week injury for Lorenzen. And then if it is a shoulder for a pitcher, takes 2 weeks off, a week or 2 more to kind of ramp back up, be able to get your velocity, your stamina back to where it needs to be. That could be relatively serious for him there. And then Jesse Winker, out in left field. He has a calf issue that now has him day-to-day here moving forward for Cincinnati. But Miguel Cabrera for the Tigers, he's headed to the injured list. He's dealing with some biceps issues. He's going to be out for at least the next 10 days. He had been struggling here early on in the year after hitting a home run on opening day. Really hasn't been able to put much together after that as he's hitting .143 and is 3 for 21 early on in the season. So that could be them kind of giving him some time ultimately to get back here before, give somebody else a look before he gets back. But Julio Teheran, also of the Detroit Tigers, he was put on the 60-day injured list. He was put on the 10-day IL last week with a shoulder strain, but it looks like it's going to be more serious than that, and he was moved to the 60-day injured list, so he'll be out at least through the beginning of June for the Tigers, and what's a little bit of a blow for them. Anali Paredes, a relief pitcher for the Houston Astros. He's going to be shut down for the next couple of weeks before he even resumes throwing. He was put on the 10-day injured list due to right side soreness. So he's dealing with, kind of an oblique the entire side. They're going to do some testing to figure out what's going on there. For the LA Angels, they got a couple of guys banged up. Anthony Rendon dealing with a tight groin. It doesn't look like he's going to play in the next couple of days, maybe give him a handful off. Felix Pena is dealing with a hamstring injury out of the bullpen. But their major loss, or the biggest issue that they have, is Dexter Fowler. He has a season-ending ACL tear in his left knee. That he got that on Friday in a win over the Blue Jays. Initially, they thought it was a left knee contusion, but it was later clarified after some MRI and some testing that it is an ACL tear, which again is kind of a 9-month, 12-month issue in return time. So he's going to be out all the way through the rest of this season before hoping to come back here next year. So Dexter Fowler comes to town, and ultimately a tough blow for him as he's going to be out for the rest of the year. Broussard Gratterall, he's going to miss a couple of days. He's nearing a return from the injured list. He's dealing with conditioning issues, trying to get ramped back up. Coming back for the Dodgers, they also have Tony Gosselin, who is going to go to the injured list because he had some soreness after working back through a shoulder issue that he's had. So a bit of a setback in his return. He's going to be out here, looks like, for at least another 10 days when it comes to Dodgerland. Next, you got Mookie Betts on the list. I talked to you guys last week about how he's missed some time. It doesn't look like he's going to be available here yet again on Monday. Hasn't played on Sunday. Ultimately, they're trying to... Oh, there's some background noise. Apologize for that. I'm looking up Mookie Betts stuff to get more information, and it was yelling at me there. So, Mookie Betts is out for the next couple of days with the back issue. Ultimately, it'll be interesting to see how long that lasts for him. You Marlins fans, Jorge Alfaro, he's dealing with a hamstring issue. He's going to be out Sunday, possibly Monday, but he's day-to-day with what's going on. But two new injuries that happened here today as well. Christian Yelich of the Milwaukee Brewers, he is dealing with some back tightness, some back soreness. That's a shame. He exited in the second inning here on Sunday. He was 1 for 2. He's off to a much better start this year, hitting .280 with 7 hits and 25 at-bats after a really down 2020 season. So starting out well for Christian Yelich. He does have a lot of strikeouts, which could be concerning, but ultimately he's doing well early this year. So a tough break there for Brewers fans. You also had Travis Shaw, who exited after fouling a ball off his shin. So he's going to be day-to-day as they want swelling to go down before ultimately they make a decision here moving forward. You got Drew Smith and Noah Syndergaard. Drew Smith day-to-day with a shoulder. Syndergaard, he is still out till at least June 15th. They moved him to the 60-day injured list. It looks like, which is why he's popping up. He threw a live BP on Saturday, so he's working his way back, but ultimately not very close to returning. The Yankees' Miguel Andujar, left fielder, he was put on the 10-day injured list, but he was recently cleared to start hitting again. So good news there for Yankees fans as Andujar looks to be out about another 10 days, but is certainly progressing in the right direction. A.J. Puck out for the Oakland Athletics. He's dealing with some biceps issues. He's going to be out for, it looks like, another month here moving forward. Ultimately, a tough break for Puck as he was looking to get into that rotation there in Oakland. Next, you have Archie Bradley of the Phillies. He's going to be put on the 10-day injured list with an oblique issue. Now, Bradley, he doesn't get injured often, and that is his history, which is part of the reason why Philadelphia brought him in. But he's going to end up on the injured list due to the oblique strain that he has here. Cody Ponce for the Pirates, he's working his way back. He's going to be out for about another 10 days or so. The Padres here, Dinelson Lamet, out for at least the next couple of days. Same with Dan Altavilla, Pierce Johnson, and Adrian Morajan. Morajan's going to be out till at least May 1st, so he's the longest out of the bunch there. He has a forearm strain that he's continuing to work back from. Evan White, day-to-day for Seattle, dealing with some quadriceps issues. Reyes Montoya, he's got an elbow issue for the Giants. He was shut down, a relief pitcher. You got Tyler O'Neill, who's going to go on the 10-day injured list for the Cardinals, the left fielder, due to a groin issue that he sustained here over the last couple of days. So, man, a lot of guys and muscles really struggling here early on, trying to get healthy. For Washington, Josh Harrison, Kyle Schwarber, Josh Bell, and John Lester, all going to be out here for the next couple of days or a couple of weeks if you're looking at Lester. But now transitioning even to Saturday, there's a ton of names on here that are continuing to figure things out. Zach Gallen, starting pitcher for the Diamondbacks. He could return on Tuesday, but he's dealing with some forearm tightness. He's trying to make his return and try to stay on time, not miss a start. You got Chris Martin for the Atlanta Braves dealing with a shoulder injury. He is placed on the 10-day injured list. So that was retroactive back to April 7th, but it looks like he's going to miss at least a couple of weeks and be out to 10 or 11 more days here moving forward. You got Hunter Renfroe dealing with an undisclosed issue in Boston. He looks to be day-to-day. Sonny Gray for the Cincinnati Reds. He's expected to return this next week. So good news for Reds fans. Sonny threw a successful simulated game on Saturday and is expected to return this next week at some point. He's been sidelined since mid-March due to back spasms, but it looks like that simulated game was the last hurdle in his rehab to ultimately get back here. Chris Owens of Colorado dealing with a thumb injury, the second baseman. The x-rays came back negative, but he was still put on the 10-day injured list here and is going to be out through at least April 20th, so 10 more days for Chris Owens. Down there in Houston, a couple of guys. Alex Bregman, he's got a leg issue that he's dealing with. He missed Saturday, he missed Sunday after being hitless on Friday. So it's day-to-day for Bregman. Looks like he's going to be able to avoid the injured list, but ultimately trying to get back as soon as possible. Austin Pruitt, a relief pitcher, has some elbow issues. He was transferred to the 60-day injured list. And then Pedro Baez dealing with some shoulder injuries out of the bullpen as well as he hit the 10-day injured list due to right shoulder soreness on Saturday. He tested positive for COVID in March, then came back and was really struggling to really find himself. So for the LA Dodgers, Joe Kelly, his return date is still uncertain. He was put on the 10-day injured list on Thursday, retroactive to March 29th. But it's still, there's no set return date for Kelly. It doesn't look like he's going to be coming back right when that 10-day injured list disappears for him. Bobby Wall in Milwaukee, he's going to be out. He was transferred to the 60-day injured list on Saturday. This cleared up a 40-man roster spot to try to get somebody on, as Wall's going to be out through at least June 3rd. And then you also have Colton Wong, their new second baseman they added from the Cardinals. He's got an oblique issue that put him on the 10-day injured list on Saturday. So he missed the game with oblique tightness and was removed Thursday due to the oblique, but ultimately he's going to miss a couple of weeks here. Josh Donaldson is close to a return in Minnesota. He was doing some sprints, playing in a simulated game. So he's day-to-day here, could be back this week at some point. You have J.D. Davis of the New York Mets, now on the 10-day injured list. The x-rays came back negative, it looks like, for his hand after he was hitting on the hand by a pitch. But ultimately, swelling and soreness is going to put Davis on the 10-day injured list and have him miss some time here coming up. You have Mitch Moreland of the Oakland Athletics. He's dealing with a hamstring issue. He's going to be out of the lineup this weekend. Looks like it's day-to-day. No long-term concerns for Mitch Moreland, but Chris Archer for Tampa Bay may not be so lucky. He was officially placed on the 10-day injured list. He had a right forearm injury during his start against the Yankees. He was also coming off thoracic syndrome surgery this past offseason, so the outlook isn't as optimistic for Chris Archer to get back to the pitcher that he once was there in Tampa. And then you have Teoscar Hernandez for Toronto, who's also set to miss the remainder of the current homestand while he's on the COVID-19 injured list. So he was put on the COVID list on Friday due to exposure for someone who tested positive outside the team, and that'll keep him out for 5 to 10 days. So once again, similar to J.D. Martinez, not exactly sure what the reasoning is, but ultimately some issues there as well. So Cody Bellinger, he looks to be back hopefully on the 16th due to his calf out there in L.A. Peter Fairbanks in Tampa, we talked about, out for about another month or so for the Rays. And then Robbie Ray, Chatwood, Holtz, and Bush for Texas and Toronto, like we spoke last week. But yeah, just a ton of injuries here on Sunday alone. Some guys played and were taken out. Others just missed some time. And it's crazy here how early in the year it's a battle of attrition already for some teams out there that could affect some of the standings moving forward. But that'll do it for segment number 3 here of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. Appreciate you guys listening as always. We'll step aside one last time here for a word from one of our sponsors and one of our sister shows. But when we come back, we're going to give you guys an update on the standings. Where are we at here after the weekend? Surprises, takeaways, what do we got? So stick around, everyone. We'll be right back after this.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Welcome back to the fourth and final segment of the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. Hideki Matsuyama wins the Masters here today, and we got some controversy on Sunday Night Baseball between the Philadelphia Phillies and the Atlanta Braves, and we might as well start there here in the fourth and final segment, because there was a play at the plate in the top of the ninth inning. Didi Gregorius hits a sac fly to left field. We got Alec Bohm coming home. He's called safe on a bang-bang play, but looking at replay, it looks like he may not have reached home plate. They looked at it, official review for a few minutes, and they decided that they were going to stay with the call on the field, which was safe at home plate. And honestly, oh man, even as a Phillies fan, I thought he was going to be out. He beat the ball, he beat the tag, but it looked like his foot never actually touched home plate. Kind of skipped over the dish there at home, but ultimately ruled safe. And that is a huge play when it comes down to the standings, because in the National League East, the Phillies now improved to 6-3, losing 2 out of 3 to Atlanta, but Atlanta falls to 4-5, which is 2 games back. So I know it's only 1 game, and people will say, oh, if they lose by 1 game at the end of the year. However, it almost amounts to 2 games in this instance, because if Atlanta would have swept and gone to 5-4, both teams would be tied at 5-4 and even at the top of the NL East. But now Atlanta is 2 games back at 4-5, and the Phillies at 6-3 are still atop the division here, 9 games in, 10 days into the regular season. So a huge play, a huge call goes in favor of the Philadelphia Phillies. My timeline here on Twitter was going bananas. How can they call it safe? Mike Trout even tweeted that it was a ridiculous call. Will Middlebrooks, a lot of other Major League guys out there on the Twitter line basically saying how they didn't agree with it and they thought it was absurd that you could watch that replay and call him safe. So a fascinating, entertaining game there on Sunday Night Baseball. Bryce Harper goes deep. Didi Gregorius goes downtown. The Braves had a home run. Freddie Freeman went yard. Acuna Jr. went yard again, and that Braves offense is starting to wake up down there in Atlanta. So I think they're going to figure things out sooner than later. But like I mentioned, 2 out of 3 against the Mets for the Phils, 1 out of 3 against the Braves, and they remain on top at 6-3. The Braves in second place at 4-5. They had won 4 straight games coming into Sunday night before losing to the Phillies there in a heartbreaker. And a lot of Braves fans are not going to be pleased, but they get the Marlins coming up next and will look to take advantage of a struggling Miami Marlins team. The New York Mets at 2-3 are in third place. They had a rainout here on Sunday, so they've only played 5 games after having that first series postponed due to coronavirus. Next up, they got the Philadelphia Phillies at home in New York, starting here on Monday, a 3-game set or 4-game set with the Phillies coming up. The Marlins are in fourth place at 2-6. Again, they have the Atlanta Braves. They'll travel to Atlanta to face off of them as they struggle. And then the Washington Nationals have lost 5 straight after getting swept by the Dodgers and losing 2 out of 3 to the Braves. And their schedule doesn't get easier as they head to St. Louis to take on the Cardinals. But Clayton Kershaw outdueled Max Scherzer to the tune of a 3-0 victory here on Sunday afternoon, and things are not off to a great start down there in Washington. In the National League Central, you have the Cincinnati Reds still at the top of the division at 6-3, but the Brewers and Cardinals only a game behind them at 5-4. The Reds, they lost 2 out of 3 at the Diamondbacks after winning 5 straight games before that. So Arizona was able to straighten things out, and they won on Sunday by a score of 7-0. So a nice outing there for Arizona on Sunday. And then the Brew Crew taking 2 out of 3 against the Cardinals and 2 out of 3 against the Cubs. Continue to win in the division, but like I mentioned in the injury side of things, a couple of guys went down today, and wasn't a great start for them, Yelich and Shaw. We'll see how long they're out here moving forward. The St. Louis Cardinals, they've lost 2 straight to the Brewers after winning 4 in a row, and they face off against Washington as they continue to play above 500 baseball. And then you have the Chicago Cubs at 4-5. Only 2 games back, but losing 2 out of 3 to the lowly Pirates. So they lose back-to-back series after winning the opening series in Pittsburgh. But Javier Baez hit a long ball on Sunday, 410 feet, and it'll be interesting to see how that next series shapes up against the Milwaukee Brewers. Then you got the Pirates. The Pirates win 2 straight after losing 6 in a row, so they feel good about themselves. Defoe crushes a pinch hit 2-run homer for the Pirates as they won 7-1 and 8-2 the last 2 days over the Chicago Cubs. So good for the Buccos, getting a couple of wins here and getting above that 1-6 start that had them on pace to really look to struggle this year. Out west, the top 2 teams, the Dodgers and the Padres, continue to play good baseball. They've each won 3 in a row. The Dodgers swept the Nationals after winning 6 in a row, a loss to the Athletics, and now 3 straight again. Next up for them is a series with the Colorado Rockies, who are in last place in the division. The San Diego Padres, along with Joe Musgrove's no-hitter, they end up sweeping the Texas Rangers, and they now travel to Pittsburgh to take on the Pirates. So their schedule's a little bit light here to start off the season. And then the San Francisco Giants taking advantage of a series against the Rockies. They swept out Colorado 3-1, 4-3, and 4-0, and they have won 5 of 6 games to be 6-3 there in the NL West, as Arizona and Colorado rounded out at 4-6 and then 3-7. Colorado getting swept by San Francisco. Again, now faces off against the Dodgers, who they lost 3 out of 4 to start the year. So in the National League, the Philadelphia Phillies on top, the NL East, the Cincinnati Reds in the Central, the Dodgers out west, with the 2 wildcard teams currently being the Padres and the Giants to round out the playoff picture here 10 days in. I know it's really early, but I just wanted to give you guys an update on where that stands. Now going over to the American League, I have to give you guys an update. I talked about J.D. Martinez and his COVID protocol. Well, he came off of the COVID list only after 1 day due to some cold symptoms he had, but he was able to pass all the tests that he needed to. And he hit 3 home runs on Sunday. So he just continues to be an absolute machine for Boston. We talked about the extra base hits, how Boston was going to miss that, and then ultimately hits 3 more home runs, has a total of 16 RBIs, and has 12 extra base hits in 8 games. So the guy is absolutely locked in and is certainly very impressive here early on. But Boston has won 6 straight after being swept by Baltimore in that first series of the year. But they will travel to Minnesota to take on the Twins, in which will be a good matchup here over the next couple of days. The Toronto Blue Jays are in second place at 4-5, along with everybody else in the American League East. Toronto, Tampa, New York, and Baltimore, all at 4-5, all 2 games behind the Boston Red Sox. But Toronto lost 2 out of 3 to the Angels. They had Sunday's game postponed. They will make it up here. It was rained out in Florida since they were the home team, and Toronto's playing their home games down in Florida. They'll make that up at a later date, but Toronto will face off against the New York Yankees once again, as the Yankees have been an early disappointment. New York, again, 4-5. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Rays over the last 3 days. They lost the first 2 games of the series, but They were able to win Game 3. Odor came in clutch with a 10th inning home run, or a 10th inning hit to get them to take the lead. So they were able to win that game in extra innings. And like I said, the Rays winning 2 out of 3 after getting swept by Boston, turning things around, and they'll head to Texas for the next series against the Rangers. The Orioles getting swept by Boston after sweeping them earlier in the year will now travel, or no, they'll stay home in Baltimore to face the Seattle Mariners as the Mariners travel east for a 3-game set with Baltimore. Now in the American League Central, we have the Cleveland Indians at the top of the division at 5-3. They're followed up by a half a game back by the Kansas City Royals, but Cleveland has won 4 straight. They started 1-3, but victory against the Royals and then a sweep of the Tigers has set them up into first place. Now they will travel to the White Sox for a nice interdivisional matchup there early in the year. That'll be fun to watch. The Royals at 4-3, they had a game postponed against the White Sox, so they split their 2-game set. Taylor helped the Royals upend the White Sox in extra innings. He scored on a misplayed bunt in the 10th inning, and that's a huge win for the Royals as they get to over 500, and they'll welcome the Anaheim Angels in over the next couple of days. The Minnesota Twins fall to 5-4 as they lose 2 games. The final 2 games of the series against the Mariners this weekend, Byron Buxton stays hot as he finished a triple shy of the cycle here, and then Kyle Seager hit a 3-run home run in the 9th inning for a blown lead from the Twins side of things as the Mariners got the comeback victory on Sunday. The White Sox at 4-5, again losing in extra to the Royals. They will face off against the Indians. There will be excellent pitching matchups there that will be fun to watch. And then the Tigers fall to 3-6. They've lost 4 straight games after being swept by the Indians, and they will travel to Houston to take on the Astros. And speaking of Houston, they're tied with the Angels at the top of the American League West. Their record is 6-3, a good start by the Angels as they look to advance to the playoffs for only the 2nd time in Mike Trout's career. Houston loses 2 out of 3 to the Athletics after sweeping a 4-game set earlier in the year. Loreno had a 2-run home run, which attributed to the 7-3 victory here on Sunday. Olsen's 3-run home run lifted them to a 6-2 victory on Saturday, and the Astros started 6-1, but are now 6-3, but look to right the ship with an upcoming series against the Tigers. Next, you have the LA Angels at 6-3. It's a nice start for the Angels. Shohei Ohtani off to a good start. We talked about the Dexter Fowler injury that could put a damper on the hot start here, but match up with the Royals coming up should allow the Angels to continue to stay hot here early on in the season. The Seattle Mariners win 2 out of 3 in Minnesota. Like I said, Kyle Seager, 3-run home run in the top of the 9th inning gives them the win, and then they'll travel from Minnesota, continue east to take on the Orioles here moving forward. The Texas Rangers getting swept by the Padres. They are in 4th place at 3-6. They will travel to Tampa Bay to face off against the Rays for a quick set. And then the Oakland Athletics in last place at 3-7 through 10 games. They were 1-7, winning 2 out of 3 against the Astros, their last 2 here. And they'll face off against the Diamondbacks here moving forward. So, in the American League, you got the Red Sox leading the East, the Indians leading the Central, and the Astros and Angels tied out West, with the Angels being that first wild card spot, and then that second spot is occupied based on a winning percentage slightly by the Kansas City Royals at 4-3, just over the 5-4 Seattle Mariners sneaking into the playoffs. But looking at some of the statistics lines, who's leading the leagues in batting average, home runs, things like that. Across Major League Baseball, you got Lamont Wade Jr. hitting .667, Santiago Espinal hitting .600, Josh Palacios for hitting .571, a couple of Blue Jays there at the top of the list. Then you have J.D. Martinez, now tied for the league lead in home runs with 5. Byron Buxton has 5. And then on the National League side of things, Tyler Naquin and Ryan McMahon of the Reds and Rockies respectively leading the league in home runs with 5 of them early on. Your RBI leaders are J.D. Martinez with 16 and Tyler Naquin from the Cincinnati Reds with 14. A couple of surprise names here at the top of the list. Total hits, Martinez with 17, Cedric Mullins with 17, and then Ronald Acuna Jr. with 16, leading the way early on. And then on the pitching side of things, you got Connor Brogdon, a relief pitcher for the Phillies, already has 3 victories, but when it comes to starters, you got Kershaw, Musgrove, and Savali, each with 2 here early on. ERAs are still at 0 at the top of the list. It's early enough where you don't need a ton of innings to qualify. You got Strasburg and Ross, both of Washington, at 0. And then Duffy, Zummer, and Junis of Kansas City at the top of the list with 0. Save leaders early on, Mark Melancon, he's got 5 for the Padres. Jake McGee has 4 for the Giants. And Alex Reyes has 3 for St. Louis to start off the year. When it comes to strikeout leaders, Shane Bieber's at the top of the list with 24. He's followed by Garrett Cole and Jacob deGrom, each with 21, and then Trevor Bauer and Jose Barrios with 20. And is there a guy with tougher luck than Jacob deGrom? I mean, the Mets blow his first start against the Phillies after he goes 6 scoreless innings. Then he goes 8 innings, giving up 1 run to the Miami Marlins and gets the loss by a score of 3-0 in the game. So he is 0-1 with a .64 ERA, 21 strikeouts, and a .71 whip, which is walks and hits per innings pitched. And man, I just feel for deGrom, but the Mets seem to be doing Mets things here still early on into the season. But that's the update across Major League Baseball. I appreciate you guys listening in. Hopefully you liked today's episode. We talked at the top of the show about the All-Star Game relocating out of Atlanta to Colorado. Wherever you sit on the spectrum there, whether you're for that or against that, I certainly respect your opinion and appreciate you guys listening to mine. We then talked about some injuries across Major League Baseball, a lot of history that has been made over the past week or so. Once again, the Padres get their first no-hitter in franchise history. We got a new stolen base record, 28 straight to start a career without being thrown out by a guy a lot of you may never even heard of. And then here at the end of the show, giving you guys an update on the standings and surprises now that we're a couple of weeks into the 2021 season. But I'll ask you guys one last time before I head out here, please rate and review the podcast. I certainly appreciate it. Give us a follow. Give us a like on social media. That helps us continue to grow. But that does it for Monday's episode, recording here Sunday night. I appreciate you guys listening in as always. I'm your host, Kevin Mahalik. Hopefully you guys had a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the work week out there. And I'll talk to you guys again on Thursday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.